Okay, that's another edit.
Maybe no, though. You know what? Let's keep it. Okay. Hi, Robert.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having us. And tell us, please, how did you get started?
How did I get started in this business?
Ew.
Oh, it was sort of by accident, but also being at the right place at the right time. I was working many years ago in Washington, D.C. as a picture framer,
Okay.
and I was looking for a more lucrative position in the art world, and I found an offer to work for an art gallery. And this was, I dare say, as far back as the 1970s. And I was hired by a man named Harry Lunn. I'd say one of the pioneers of launching photography as a fine art industry.
Okay.
And I stayed with the Lunn Gallery, Harry Lunn, for at least 7 years. Rose through the ranks, became director of the gallery, and this was at the time when the fine art photography world was just beginning to flourish. People were starting to be exposed to this medium and understand that it was more than just a snapshot. And they saw the intrinsic value and the collectability of these pictures. And so I was, as I said, at the right place at the right time. After working for this gallery for about 7 years, I was offered a position here in New York to run another contemporary gallery, which I did for 2 years. That was the Light Gallery. And then in 1985, I decided to set out on my own and start my own gallery. So it's been a long trip.
It is, really, indeed.
Yeah.
But, okay, so since it's such a cool answer, I'm just gonna go from here and ask you, what is your highlight about today? After all these years, since it's been like pretty long ride, right? So
Yes.
what would you say about today?
You mean?
What would be your highlight about like how it's changed? What is happening right now in the photography world, in galleries, with fine art photography?
Well, it's a much more universally accepted form of art. It's much more popular. When I began in the 70s, you could probably count on one or two hands how many galleries in the entire world were devoted to photography full time. Today, there's well over 100. Probably a few hundred galleries throughout the world, and there's actually fewer today than there were a number of years ago. But it's much more an acceptable medium and a much more universally promoted medium. Also, what defines photography has changed drastically. It used to be much more just traditionally based work, and now photography isn't necessarily segregated purely by the technical aspects. It's a medium that has been pushed to many different directions and extremes. It's a combination with other mediums, including some that we've explored. So it's much more not only universally accepted, but it's become more prevalent in even contemporary art arenas. So you'll see galleries that are not fully focused on photography, but on contemporary art, having a strong program with photographers as well. You'll see photography being shown and integrated with painting and drawing and prints. So that's been a huge shift from what I saw in the beginning in the 1970s, and it's a very nice one to see. We see artists that are far more expressive, artists that take many more chances and experimentation in the work that they create, and just we see the medium always kind of pushing the envelope and reinventing and redefining itself in terms of what its potential is.
But how do you choose people with whom work? Or how do you choose artists with whom you're going to work? What are like the most important things for you?
Well, I guess first and foremost, it has to be something that resonates with me, something that appeals to me in some manner, that it creates a response, a strong response. and I have to like it. I mean, I have to like it. I have to want it in some regard. It has to make sense in the program that I already have. So I don't necessarily look to bring in artists that are duplicating what I already have, what other artists have been doing. I look for some new voices and fresh faces. I like work that on the surface is pleasurable to look at. It gives me some enjoyment, but I especially like work that has that component and then some inner meaning, some subtext, some aspect that beyond the beauty or the compelling factor of what you see on the surface, that inside there's a message to be delivered. And many of the contemporary artists that we've become involved with in the last few years have that quality. And I really enjoy engaging with those artists.
Tell us a little bit more about like your favorite shows during last year or years, like recent.
You know, we've done hundreds of shows over all the years.
I can only imagine how hard is this question, but anyway.
And not only in the gallery. I mean, we've done hundreds of shows in our galleries, but we've done many art fairs around the world, and we even do online shows, which became more popular during the pandemic. And to some extent, even though we want people to come in and see the work in person, we still put a lot of material online. But if I were to look back at this past year, 2025, we had a fabulous year with 3 young artists, 2 who were new to us, and 1 who I've been working with for quite a while. Each one of them, these are contemporary artists that do something very unique, very different from the larger audience, the larger collection of artists out there. One artist, for instance, he goes by the name Drift. Mm-hmm. And Drift is a black man who served in the US military. And early on, he was dealing with PTSD and finding that climbing very tall structures around the world was a cathartic way of dealing with that. He was climbing the world's tallest bridges and buildings and sculptures, and he started to document this, taking pictures. And he trained himself. He's self-taught as an artist, so he really honed his skills and became quite a good photographer. And he was documenting these climbs, which, I mean, the images that he's taking from these vantage points that nobody else can get to are extraordinary in themselves. But then he would be putting himself in the pictures. So these would be sort of self-portraits. And as I said, these pictures are very compelling just on the surface. You look at them and your knees start to wobble because you feel like you're looking over the edge of this building where he's taking the picture. But they deal with the subtext. They deal with issues. They deal with the issues of authority and challenging authority, the issues of trespassing and where we are or are not allowed to go. They deal with the issues of rules and regulations, in particular, how they apply to a black man in American society and how those rules and regulations are often different than they would be for someone, for a white person. So I found this work really engaging. I read an article about him in the New York Times years ago when he was dealing with legal issues, and I reached out, and it took a few years for it to culminate in working together and doing exhibitions together, but we have a very successful partnership. And that was one of these 3 shows this past year that was very interesting. And I have to say, it's the only time in all the hundreds of shows I've done where the artist was led away in handcuffs during his opening reception.
Oh my God.
He was arrested because he had climbed the top of the Empire State Building, and it was in the New York Times a week before our exhibition opened. And so they pressed charges for trespassing, which I'm happy to say were all dismissed. But in any event, it was an exciting opening.
So people were here and they just come.
So we had We had a couple hundred people in the gallery. We were in a different space in this building. We
Okay.
took over a larger space. And there were undercover police people there that we weren't aware of.
Wow.
And to their credit, they waited to the very end of the reception. I think they had been instructed to arrest him right at the beginning, but they saw how serious this exhibition was. The work was magnificent, and it was presented as such. And they even said, the police said to, his name is Isaac Wright, but he goes by Drift. They said to Isaac that they loved his work, you know, but they were having to follow orders. And so at the end of the evening, at the end of the reception, they very gently escorted him away. And, you know, it was something in all my years, I've never experienced. But,
Like a movie.
like a movie. Yeah, a lot of people thought that we had staged this. I think even at first, I think he believed it was staged at first, that some of his friends had put us up to this.
But was the particular photograph included in the show? Right?
Yes, so that was the hard evidence hanging on the wall. There was one of the amazing pictures in the show was taken from the top of the Empire State Building.
Amazing.
So it sort of cemented the notion that yes, he had in fact climbed that building, and you know, they had to show some teeth in the matter. But anyway, no harm was done, and he was able to be released shortly after. And we just took that exhibition that we had here in the gallery and brought it to Las Vegas, where it had a very successful showing as well. So that was one of the exciting shows of this past year. And then another young artist that we recently started work with is Spandita Malik. And Spandita is a young woman from India, but she lives now in New York. And she has been collaborating with women in India, I think in northern India for the most part, that have very limited, if any, freedoms at all. You know, this is a very old, kind of archaic and patriotic society where some women have been arranged or put in arranged marriages in some cases and are kept almost as captives in their home by their husbands. They don't have the freedom that women elsewhere have. And Spandita has made it her mission to find these women and take their portraits. And then after she takes their portraits, she prints it on fabric, and she leaves the fabric with these women, and the women embroider it. And it's fantastic. So this is where I was mentioning earlier the intersection of different art forms. And I've been very interested specifically in how textile and photography comes together. And I can circle back to that later, how that happened. But these women who have to do this secretly, they do it at some of these nonprofit centers where they go to have social interaction with other women and some feeling of freedom outside of the marital home. They will go and work on their embroidery there. And in some cases, it takes months and many months to finish a piece. And they're very, very elaborate, but they're spectacular. And the work that they do, some that are being trained to do it, or sometimes they've learned from their mothers, it's a craft that's been handed down. They embellish these photographs and they render them into how they want to be viewed by the world, because they're self-portraits, or portraits, I should say. And it's fascinating to see how they present themselves. In some cases, they'll obscure their face, and in other cases, they won't. So it takes some risk there, perhaps. But those works are, we had a very successful show, and I'm happy to have, I mean, the works are stunning on their own, but knowing that they have this subtext and convey this sort of important message, and that some of the proceeds from the sales of this work go back to help these women and organizations. It gives us a warm and fuzzy feeling.
Right.
So, and then I guess a third artist that I'll mention, and this is a woman that I've been working with for many years named Mary Mattingly. Mary has always focused on artwork that has an environmental message to deliver. She's concerned about the planet and about how things are not going well for the planet, and how Mother Nature is being assaulted just like mankind these days. And more recently, she's been very focused on issues of water. And the series that she has done recently is, it focuses specifically on riparian zones, which are the very, very fragile, delicate areas of the water's edge, and where rising water tables are now destroying these riparian zones and changing the flora and fauna that would otherwise live there. She did a gorgeous body of work that we exhibited, and was very, very well received. And we're about to release a second collection of imagery from this series. It's like a new version, and it'll be offered as an online exhibition. But the prints will be available here. So the work is sumptuous. It's gorgeous. These are like floral still lives, and they don't necessarily make broadcast that there is a concern by the artist about about the environment, but it's nice to know that that's there. I like that aspect of the work.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've seen the work before, so I love them very much, actually. One more question, why photography? You've been around the place, you've been like working with different medias. Why photography? Why did you choose photography, and you're stick with it and you're still working with it?
I don't know if I chose it. I think it chose me.
Oh, interesting. How? Tell us more.
It was serendipitous. I actually loved photography when I was young. I had my own darkroom. I knew how to process film and print. And for a brief period, I even taught it. I had no ambition to be an artist. I knew early on, looking at people like, the great masters like Ansel Adams, that I didn't have what it took. I didn't have that kind of eye. I knew I could recognize great work, but I knew I also couldn't make that great work. So when I began in this gallery in Washington, D.C., it was just by luck that this gallery had chosen to champion photography and promote some of the artists that are now considered, the world's greatest artists, being Irving Penn, Ansel Adams, Robert Frank, Walker Evans. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I was, as I said, at the right place at the right time. And I already was, passionate about photography, so it just stuck. And I guess I could have branched out into other art mediums over time, but there's so much amazing work being done just as photo-based work that I feel like it made sense to keep my program somewhat focused in that one medium.
Mm-hmm. So my very, very last question, but you provoked me to ask. So it's all about like your feelings. It's not like the decisions from your head. It's like something from the inside.
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, the only other thing I could say that would be a motivating factor would be economics. Obviously this is, I can't do this out of pure love. I'm not a museum. I am running a for-profit business. I do need to sell the pictures to keep the business running and to support the artists. So there is always that aspect where I have to feel as though I can sell the pictures. I can place them in private collections and in museum collections. I have to feel that they have some financial traction.
Of course.
And thankfully they do. And thankfully, since I began, the value for many things has really increased astronomically.
Amazing.
So they've proven to be good investments. Not that that should be the motivating factor, but certainly for somebody considering buying art, photography can be much more accessible than painting and sculpture. The entry level in buying art that's photographic is generally much more reasonably priced than some of those other mediums. And that's great, because if you're buying something that you want to live with and you love to look at, and over time it increases in value, that's just even better.
Of course. I do love how you describe this period, that it's like increasing with values, and that the whole thing is like growing up. That's the best thing to know, probably, because like during the last few years the market changed so much, and photography is changing, like with these technologies, with all the new sources. You can see those like images, and some people are just do not even believe that photography can stand it.
The photography market is not impervious to what goes on in the broader economic sense. Just like the art world itself, it has its ups and downs, and sometimes it's influenced by the general marketplace, the stock market, distraction of what's going on in the world. Sometimes when things go bad in the world, it's good for the art world, and sometimes it's the opposite. It depends. People often like to lose themselves in art or distract themselves with something beautiful when, it seems like the world is going to hell around them. But also it's often, people they have to feel comfortable about spending money and buying something that is not essential. So it can go both ways, but it's not the reason to buy. In my opinion, it's not the reason to buy art. It's just one of the benefits that if you do buy art and you buy it wisely, that it will retain its value and hopefully appreciate its value.
That sounds perfect. Everyone's supposed to buy more art.
Yes.
Yeah. What is your very favorite thing to own this place, to be here, to run it, to create it?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. There's so many things I love about what I do. I think one of the most rewarding things is seeing somebody brand new make that connection to a piece of art and get it energized and know that, that switch has flipped. That person is hooked. That person wants to see more, and hopefully that person wants to buy more. So that's one of the most pleasurable things, is knowing that I'm introducing somebody to something that may change their life. It gives them such pleasure, and that they may dive into more deeply. But I love working with artists, most artists. And I love curating shows. I love not only deciding, we're going to do this exhibition, but then selecting the works, arranging them on the walls. I love being able to call an artist and say, hey, I sold one of your works. Nothing gives me more pleasure than that. I love being able to say, I placed one of your works in such and such important museum. I mean, that's very fulfilling as well. So there are many aspects to what makes this business enjoyable.
Okay, very last. What is your dream today, now?
My dream?
Yeah.
God, that's a hard question. I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, maybe not the one you cannot talk
You mean
about, but maybe something. Yeah, maybe.
My dream in the broad sense is
just in the broad sense, just like.
Well, that our species will learn how to evolve more instead of digress. And I'm responding to your question in a much broader sense, but I'm very dismayed by the repeated mistakes our species keeps making. And I would think by now we would have learned from our lessons and from our mistakes. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the photography world or necessarily the art world, but in terms of what's going on in the political world, I'm very dismayed, and my dream would be that some common sense would prevail, and we would we would figure this out and move forward in a positive way.
Yeah.